Let's assume that we do not believe in the existence of unicorns. Can we still say that it is true that a unicorn only has a single horn? Let's say that I don't believe in Cupid. Does that make the statement that Cupid shoots arrows untrue? What does true mean in this context? Do we take amusement in a dog that tries to catch its tail, sometimes to the point of laughing? We do so because our perspective of the dog's serious pursuit for the tail seems so obviously futile to us and beyond the comprehension of the dog. Do we question the truth of the statement that some, if not most people, find a dog trying to catch its tail humorous? Unlike the existence of unicorns or Cupid, we do believe in the existence of dogs, but is that really relevant to the veracity of the statement that the dog's serious pursuit of its tail is a source of amusement to humans? The difference between the statement about the human reactions to dogs and the relation of a horn to a unicorn is foundational. We found our relationship to the unicorn, or Cupid, on definition, and the human dog statement is based on our experience. So the truth of the statement that humans plan and God laughs can be true regardless of the existence of God, because we have a definition to go on for God and experience to go on for humans. Human planning is imperfect and has a strong element of risk, randomness, and luck attached to it. Yet we take our plans very seriously, just like the dog's serious pursuit of its tail. Furthermore, a commonly accepted definition of God is that God has a more complete view and understanding of reality than humans have. God not only sees what's currently occurring, but has a view into the future and can see where our plans lead. Like people being amused at the sight of a dog trying to catch its tail, God, were God to exist, is amused by our attempts to plan. A while back, we were asked to write something for internal publication, and I figured I could do something, whip something up, but when I got done, it was way too long. So I kind of set it aside, and then when I came up with the idea for today's sermon, I said, this story pretty much fits in with today's sermon. So I'm going to read the story to you. This is another reason why I read a poem instead of a story when the story should go. This really began because a friend of mine at work came up to me and was trying to explain how his weekend went. And it had something to do with, how it starts with a drip and then turns into a project. And I thought, in my own little twisted mind, it always starts with a drip. So that was the name of the story. How many home improvement projects begin with a drip? Perhaps the faucet in the bathroom does not quite stop when turned fully to the off position. A shower head sheds a slow tear. You fill a pot in the kitchen sink with water so it can soak for a while before you scrub it. You sit down to read, and in mid-sentence, your reading is interrupted by subliminal awareness that something is not right. The almost silent drip is heard by your unconscious before you are aware that you hear it. Yes, it starts with a drip. One of my childhood comforts I've carried into adulthood is tomato soup. Preferably the concentrated kind I grew up with. Just add a can of milk or water and heat. The other day I filled my bowl with warm soup, stored the remainder, filled the pot with water in the kitchen sink to let it soak. I left the pot under the tap, and I sat down to enjoy the soup and finish my crossword. My simple but blissful plan was to spend an hour eating the soup and finishing a crossword. It was a simple plan, no big deal. I was just trying to figure out if the clue, given name of the father of modern Turkey, was Mustafa, for Mustafa Ataturk. when it occurred to me that there was a sound that didn't fit into the scene. It was such a low level of awareness that I was not sure if it was real. Perhaps I should ignore it. After all, I just recently replaced the O-ring on that faucet. It looks perfectly functional on the outside, and it must be my imagination. So I returned to the crossword. Next clue. Whose statue replaced that of Unitarian minister Thomas Starr King in Washington, D.C.? Oh gosh, I knew the answer to that one. The answer to that clue hurt my brain so much I'd rather think about plumbing. I decided to look at the sink to see if the recently fixed faucet was truly dripping. Sure enough, just when I got there, it dripped. If it only drips every 2 minutes or longer, I'll leave it until it gets worse. Who knows? It might get better all by itself. No such luck. The next drip followed 30 seconds later. I decided to try a less sensitive measure to see if that would work better, but then my wife walked in. Good. I wondered when you were going to finally get to that faucet. Huh? She looked at me. I informed her that I fixed it only 3 weeks ago and dripping every 40 seconds is not so bad. But it dripped twice in the time I was defending my plumbing skills. And she was staring right at the faucet. So even without looking at her watch, it was obvious. She knew I was shirking my duty. The faucet was not that new, neither was the sink. So I said that maybe we should buy a new faucet and sink. And because the sink was installed below the counter, I'd already demonstrated my lack of plumbing acumen. I agreed we would hire professionals to do the installation. I like that. I don't like spending money, don't get me wrong, but ripping out a counter and installing a new one does not happen often enough in my lifetime that I trust the job to someone like me. So off we went to Home Depot to pick out a faucet. We picked one out that had the sprayer built into the faucet head, boasted several different spray levels. It was capable of being pulled to direct the spray exactly where you want it. And since we are what was once termed a liberated household, I do my share of the after-dinner cleanup, so I love gadgets that make life easier. So we were agreed on the faucet. We also picked out a nice stainless sink that would be deep enough for us to get our largest pot under the faucet, but not too big. Life is going according to plan. Next, we went to Arizona Tile and Stone Store to pick out granite slab for the counter. We put on our hard hats and walked around the warehouse for 45 minutes before agreeing on a nice reddish piece of granite. It was sliced with the grain so the pattern had motion, flame, and drama. Again, life is good. They even offered my wife a 6-inch square of granite to take home so we could make sure it would look good in the actual light of the room. I was fully confident that it would fit in fine. I was looking forward to seeing how nicely that pattern would enhance our kitchen. So we finally got home with the faucet, sink, a small chunk of a slab. I'm ready to finish my crossword. My wife set the granite on our existing counter, and I was figuratively blown away. It looked so nice there. I was confident in our choices and was just about to call the contractor to schedule the install for the counter and the faucet. That is, I was just about to say something when my wife said, "This new counter will make our cabinets look even worse than they do now." Look worse than they do now? I never even noticed the cabinets. When I come into the kitchen, it's to open the cabinets and look at the contents, not the container. But then, what do I know? So we went online and saw there was a kitchen remodeling store nearby, so back into the car and over to the store we went. It took us only 90 minutes after looking at 8 different wood grains, each with 12 different stains, to arrive at a grain and stain that we each liked. Then we had to decide on a door style and hardware, which took another 30 minutes. This time we were sent home with a block of wood displaying the grain and stain we'd chosen. They would wait our call to schedule the work. Home again, the wood grain block was laid next to the small granite slab. Wow, did that look great. I was ready to break out the champagne, celebrate our success at shopping effectively. Now we had a cabinet, counter, sink, new faucet picked out. The kitchen is going to look fantastic. I was afraid to even think about calling the contractor, though, because I remembered what happened last time. I tried to schedule a start date. Instead, I looked at my wife questioningly. Unfortunately, she was already staring at me, and her look was not the desired look of satisfaction I'd hoped for. In fact, her look gave me the impression that I should probably prepare for some very bad news, like perhaps another Hindenburg, or Belgium had just declared war on Holland. She was not happy. Now the floor tile in the kitchen looks awful. I'm shocked that you didn't notice it as soon as that cabinet sample is laid down. The new counter and cabinets will be floating on a sea of ugly. I can't live with that. Can you? Okay, I tried to figure out if I was supposed to nod agreement or shake my head no. I envisioned a new calendar with no Saturday or Sunday on it. Any time I had for sitting around enjoying a simple bowl of soup and a crossword had just become extinct. I was going to make yet one more trip to the store, so I wanted to make sure it was the last one. Well, if we're replacing the tile, the carpeting in the living room and family room need to be replaced as well. It'll butt up against the kitchen tile. We know that old carpeting next to the new tile will be a big mistake. I was proud of myself for thinking of it first. I did it. By leaping ahead, I preempted another trip back to the store. There might be some weekend to salvage after all. I saw a tiny light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe it was just an old flashlight with a weak battery at the end of an extremely long and circuitous tunnel, but it shone and I could still see it. Exactly what I was thinking, said my wife. Get your coat. We're going to buy flooring. We were getting faster. 40 minutes flat, we picked out tile size, tile pattern, color, how the tile would be laid on the bias. The carpeting took only 45 minutes. So then in less than 90 minutes, we were in our car on the way home with a sample tile and a carpeting sample. I let myself think about the crossword. Is poignant another way of saying filled with significance? Would it fit in the spaces on the crossword? I might be able to finish it yet. So we arrived at the house, and I didn't even look at the tile and the carpet swatch. I knew our work was complete, so I decided to take the puzzle in the bedroom where I could work in peace. The piece lasted a total of 150 seconds. Do you know how long it's been since we had the walls painted? I looked up. It must have been obvious by the look on my face that I was trying to figure out what walls and paint are. My wife made a motion with her hand like she was the Karate Kid, holding a paintbrush and stroking paint on the wall. I tried very hard to smile. I felt the weekend was doomed. Perhaps I should make sure my affairs are in order. I tried suggesting that I trusted my wife's decision-making powers, and she should head over to the paint store to select the paint without me. I tried very hard. She explained very patiently to me that that would never do. Wall color is too important not to involve both adults in a two-adult household. After all, we both have to look at it every day. I didn't bother to state that if somebody came up to me and asked me what color the walls in the bedroom or family room, colors I helped pick out 5 years ago, were, I would probably look at the questioner like they were speaking Klingon. I might guess that it was some shade of brown, green, or maybe blue. Just to check my memory, I looked at the wall in the family room. It was a dusty rose color. I suddenly remembered helping my wife select it. Somehow I managed to form a primitive memory there. Dunn Edwards, vaguely familiar. Each brand they carried had a rack of color chips. Each color and shade came in an array of finishes, from flat to eggshell, from semi-gloss to glossy. I knew my boggled brain would take at least a week to become unboggled, but I had to figure out a way to make it through the next hour of selection. I figured smiling and nodding would see me through somehow. I kept smiling, and when asked a question, I nodded. My wife had just said, "This color is so ugly. I don't see how anyone could put this on their wall. Do you like it?" I caught myself mid-nod. Sometimes it's the little things that save a marriage. I just made a marriage-saving move when I changed that nod into a shake. Okay, the story's taken much longer than it should. It's $24,873.32 later. We've been living in a construction zone for 8 weeks, finished all room and closet doors, every wall has been repainted, The floors throughout the house are new. The kitchen counters and cabinets are new. The faucet and the sink is new. And while we were at it, we replaced the stove, dishwasher, and refrigerator. And I'm about to walk in the front door. Everything should finally be put back together. I can't wait. Why are all the doors still leaning against the walls? I asked my wife. New carpet has a taller pile than the old one. The doors won't open and close. I called a handyman. He'll plane them all tomorrow for just a couple $100 and then rehang them. I smile and I look around. I realize this is probably the last time I'll notice all these nice things we've done to the house, and then I can just go back to living in it. As I look around, I detect a barely audible dripping sound coming from the guest bath. So, why do we care about the imperfection of our plans? Because that is one of the ways we know ourselves. I recall a minister in the Unitarian Universalist Church that we attended in Illinois saying to me that the only thing that he really feared is a true believer. Someone who is so certain about his or her knowledge that there is no longer any room for doubt. I agree with that statement. It contains within it the ability to even doubt the veracity of that statement itself. From my experience as part of Unitarian and then later Unitarian Universalist congregations for 6 decades, it has been the community of searchers that has best defined who we are. We find the search fulfilling and a foundation upon which we can build a community. That's why I have a visceral repulsion to any dogmatic statements. By that I mean certainty in the non-existence of God as much as statements about certainty in the existence of God. People can have the experience that God could not exist, and we're here on our own to make our way through this journey of discovery without a deity. That experience is not a belief and can be discussed openly here and frankly, as should the opposite experience, an experience of certainty that God exists. That experience is also open to discussion here, and not a belief that precludes discussion. So we seekers and planners stumble and bumble through this amazing life together. We make plans that are the amusement of God or the gods, or perhaps no one at all. We are all dogs chasing our tails and find our pleasure and pain of living in that pursuit. Humans plan, God laughs.